Look, Dragon Ball is one of my favorite franchises of all time, and it will always remain as one of my favorite stories ever told. But just like a lot of other popular fictional stories around the world, the plot of DB isn't perfect. And that's okay, because in reality, no story is perfect. In my opinion, I think most people could find a lot more enjoyment in flawed stories than stories that are perfect from start to finish. It not only keeps discussions around the series interesting, but you can also argue in a way that it helps shape a franchise's identity. I personally think that if Dragon Ball was a perfect series with little to no flaws, then its story wouldn't be still talked about amongst the thousands of action-adventure stories that existed back then and today, despite it being influential. After all, some of those flaws could be what makes Dragon Ball feel like Dragon Ball. But enough about that. The main point is that there's quite a few things in Dragon Ball that still don't make sense to me despite rewatching the anime and even reading the manga of the series. Whether it's stuff that could have used a lot more elaboration so the audience doesn't get confused, or stuff that just flat out contradicts details inside the lore, we're gonna go over some of those details. Now let me make this clear before we start. I'm not in any way bringing some of these plot holes up to downplay Dragon Ball's story. Again, I still think it's a good story despite its flaws. This is more so a fun little video to give the community a chance to explain these weird elements inside the plot to see if I'm overanalyzing the narrative or if I'm missing a few details in its story that could easily explain these confusions. So please, for the love of everything, do not take this as some form of malice towards the series and tear me up inside the comments. With that being said, let's get into the main video. One thing that never made sense to me was how Tamarin was able to destroy Goku's Nimbus Cloud in OG Dragon Ball. For those who need context, inside of chapter 67 of Dragon Ball, it was explained that the flying Nimbus cannot be destroyed or caused to disappear so easily, and as long as Goku calls out its name after it disappears, the Nimbus will always return to him in one piece. So then how did Tambourine in the Piccolo saga manage to completely destroy his Nimbus Cloud? It's something that's never been explained in the anime or manga of Dragon Ball, and to be quite frank with you, I don't think it ever will be. It's pretty obvious that the writers just simply wanted an excuse to prevent Goku from chasing after Tambourine here, and also so that way he can run into Yajirobe and properly meet him, which even if you could argue was a good thing for the story, it did unfortunately make the rules behind the Nimbus Cloud much more confusing than it had to be. If this ever does get elaborated on in the future, then that would be cool, but until then, this plot point just simply does not make sense to me. Another thing that doesn't make sense to me in Dragon Ball is how did Cell manage to regenerate his body after getting hit by Goku's instant transmission Kamehameha? For those who need context, in Dragon Ball Z, Cell has the ability to regenerate his body parts thanks to being built with some of Piccolo's regeneration genes. And it was later explained in the Cell games that Cell has this special core that allows him to fully regenerate his body located within his head. You know, the same part of his body that was destroyed when Goku shotgun blasted him with his instant transmission Kamehameha. So how was Cell able to regenerate the upper half of his body if the core that he stated was located in his head was destroyed? Now before people rush to the comments and tell me that Cell has this magical ability to be able to regenerate from a single cell, this has never actually been stated officially inside the series. In fact, this claim that people are making about Cell is actually a mistranslation from the original Funimation English dub of Dragon Ball Z. If you actually read the manga, watch Dragon Ball Z Kai, or even watch the original Japanese broadcast version of Dragon Ball Z, Cell specifically states that the only reason he was able to survive his self-destruction was because the core that allows him to regenerate remained intact during that moment. So do not let me catch you inside the comments spreading around this malarkey claim that Cell can regenerate from a single cell, because then I don't know what type of Dragon Ball fan you are. As for the possibility of Cell potentially lying about his regeneration abilities, I definitely do think that this is more so up for debate because me personally, I cannot see someone like Cell who's very verbatim about his perfect form lying about what he can actually do with it. Maybe you could argue that he did possibly lie about his regeneration ability, but until then, I just think that this is kind of a bit of a stretch. Who knows, maybe in the future if we do get another saga that covers the androids as well as the Red Ribbon Army, we can possibly get some more explanation as to how Cell actually functions. But until then, this is still one of the things that very much confused me inside Dragon Ball. One other thing that confused me in Dragon Ball is, why did the Dragon Balls become active in the Red Ribbon Army saga when it only had been 8 months since they were last used? For those who need context, it was explained by Bulma in chapter 20 of Dragon Ball that once the Dragon Balls had been used, you'd have to wait a full year before they could become usable again. And the last time the Dragon Balls were used at this point was near the end of the Pilaf saga, which takes place several months before the Red Ribbon Army saga. Keep in mind, a full year is 12 months. Now pay attention to what I'm about to explain to you, because keeping track of the days here is important to understand my question. When Goku leaves to go to Kame House to train with Master Roshi, meet Krillin, recruit Launch, and participate in Roshi's stone searching test, this only took 1 full day. And since it was also explained that everyone except Goku got sick from eating Launch's meal that same day, that's an additional 3 days that passed by. When Goku and Krillin started training with Roshi for the 21st Tenkaichi Budōkai tournament, 8 months would pass by before that tournament started. And since most of the tournament's fights took place during the daytime, with Goku vs Jackie Chan being the only fight that extended to the evening, and Goku leaving at night that same day to find Grandpa Gohan's 4-star ball, it's safe to say that this tournament took 1 full day to finish. And since Goku comments on the sun rising up, it's safe to say that this is now happening the next day after the tournament, which is also the same day the Red Ribbon Army saga starts. So why then, when Goku and the others encountered the Dragon Balls in this saga, did they become usable again when only 8 months and 5 days had passed since the Dragon Balls were last used? Now granted, this is one of those weird time jumps inside Dragon Ball that you would only catch if you paid really close attention to the time jumps inside the series. But still, I would say out of all the things that I've listed so far that don't make sense to me inside Dragon Ball, this one is by far the most egregious that possibly can't even be explained with simple headcanon. So I am genuinely curious to see how people will be able to explain how the Dragon Balls became usable again in the Red Ribbon Army saga when only 8 months had passed since then. The last subject that we're going to talk about inside this video is, how did Goku get the heart virus? For those who need context, in chapter 335 of Dragon Ball Z, it's explained that future Goku doesn't participate in the battle against the androids due to him succumbing to the heart virus, the same virus that would later on bother present Goku in his fight against Android 19. What isn't officially explained though is how Goku even got infected with this virus and why he's the only known victim of it, which led to a lot of people creating some interesting fan theories about it. The first theory I remember someone mentioning was that the poison effects of the ultimate water of the gods Goku drank in OG Dragon Ball had began to slowly manifest in his heart over the years. But if that was the case, we would have to accept that Goku was not being attacked by a virus and that he was poisoned all along. There's also the popular Yardrat theory in which people believe the virus could have come from that planet's atmosphere. However, it's never been officially suggested in the series that the planet has a toxic atmosphere, or that the virus could have originated from it, because from what Trunks explained, this sounds like an ordinary virus from Earth.
Okay then, Bulma. So Goku must have contracted the virus on Earth while he was on one of his adventures, because how the hell else could he have gotten it?
That's plausible, Bowie, but that still doesn't explain how Goku even got the virus, which leads us to theory number 4. Dr. Gero created the virus and infected Goku with it.
Really? That old fart? Well then again, he did have that weird crusty ass smirk on his face when Goku had a heart attack.
That, and he did seem pretty confident that Android 19 was going to beat Goku despite having no data on his Super Saiyan form. And you can't forget about his little spy drones. It's possible one of them could have landed on Goku and infected him with the heart virus while he wasn't looking, and triggered the virus to attack on cue for when they started the invasion.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. I don't freaking know anymore, my head hurts.
Maybe untie that sheet from your head?
I'm going to pelt your ears if you keep saying that.
So what do you guys think? How did Goku get the virus? Try not to let this question get to you. After all, it's just a thought. And that's going to do it for this video. Again, the point of this video wasn't to belittle Dragon Ball's narrative, but to simply discuss some things that, as the video title says, don't make sense to me in the story. Maybe it is possible that some of these questions could be answered later on in the story, whether through some more elaboration on the lore or through simple retconning. But until then, I'll just keep asking them to see what the community has to say about them. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to help me grow, and let me know if I should make a part 2 of this video or more shorts on this topic in the future, because I do still have some more questions about Dragon Ball's story that I'd like to discuss. But for now, it's been Mr. Boomer, reminding you all to stay fresh.